This weekend post, using a blur filter to accentuate your subject. Hey everyone, I'm Scott Davenport and welcome to In Post. Thanks for joining me today. If this is the first time you're checking out my channel, I hope you like what you see. Thanks for giving me a shot and maybe you'll come back for another video. So I want to continue with the photo I showed toward the end of the In the Field episode earlier this week. I had this shot of my main subject from that shoot with these trees out in the water here. And I liked this particular natural framing. Certainly I've done some stylization on this already. I did a bunch of filters, adding contrast into the shadows and keeping the highlights bright and soft. This is kind of part of this ongoing black and white project that I have as a personal thing, just for my own photographic growth. But what I wanted to point out specifically is how I decided to use a blur filter to really help focus in on these trees here. So you can see I've done a bunch of different things here, but this blur filter, if I hit the O key to turn that on, you can see I'm not blurring anything in the center, and then I'm softly fading that and blurring everything out at the edges. And so the effect of that is before, and look at the crispness in the trees here and over here, and also these grasses on the bottom, and then after. They get a little bit softer, and I'm going to crank up the opacity on this really high so you can see where that blur effect is happening. And as I look at this, I might even want to change the shape here just a little bit so that I can tighten up the midpoint on that feather so that these guys here and maybe this tree branch here starts to get some of that blur as well, and really just bias it in right on those trees there so that my viewer's eye will be drawn here without a doubt. And then we'll take that blur back off because that was a little bit too strong. But that was for illustrative purposes. You can see where that blur is happening. Let me do the before and after one more time now. So before that blur and after. It's a subtle change. And if you've watched other of my videos, you know that's kind of my motif. Subtle changes that add up to something that's hopefully pleasing. But I really liked the blur on this one, where it did take just enough of the crispness off of the edges of the photo and that natural framing that was in the scene, so that my viewer didn't get lost, didn't get confused, and knew exactly what they needed to look at. I think that's the natural tip of the week, is using a blur filter to emphasize your subject. It might be, a similar, like a tilt shift style approach to, focusing in on, say, like a portion of a cityscape, or in the case I have here, doing some type of radial blur. I happened to be in on one photo for this because I was doing some other stylization there, but there was nothing special about this particular filter. I'm pretty sure any software package you're using is going to have some type of blur, or if it has a clarity slider, taking that in the negative direction. So that's something you can do in Lightroom. You take clarity, the opposite of adding contrast, and it will soften things up a little bit, and then use that with a radial type of masking gradient to shape that around a particular subject. And that's it for this weekend post. Short one, sweet one, and hopefully you can put it to use. It's a simple technique, but can be very effective for your photos. And until next time, my name is Scott Davenport, and happy shooting. And that is it for this week in the post. Short in the post? That might be something that's in the mail.